used to work the night shift at a small, quiet hotel about a year ago. Even now, I can't stop thinking about what happened that night. It still makes my stomach twist. I don't know what that man's plan was, but remembering how long he was there without me realizing he wasn't supposed to be still chills me. The hotel was small, 3 floors, 40 rooms at most. Weeknights were slow, maybe 10 or 15 guests total. My shift was from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., usually peaceful and dull. I'd sit behind the desk, do paperwork, check the cameras, or scroll on my phone. The lobby wasn't big, just a desk, a few couches, and vending machines. Behind the desk, there was a little office with a glass window, so I could see everything. After midnight, the doors locked automatically, so guests had to buzz in. That night around 11 p.m., a man buzzed to come in. He looked mid-40s tall, a little thin, wearing jeans, a baseball cap, and carrying a backpack. He asked for a room, and I gave him room 214. I swiped his card, it beeped, and I handed him the key. He stared at me for a few seconds, expressionless, then turned and left. It wasn't threatening, just off. An hour later, I looked up and saw him again, sitting in the lobby, staring at the blank TV screen. He wasn't using his phone, wasn't reading, just sitting perfectly still. When I walked across the lobby, I felt his eyes follow me the whole time. That's when the unease really started. Around 1 a.m., I checked the system and saw something strange. Room 214 showed as vacant. I checked again. No name, no payment, no record of a check-in. Even the door log said no one had entered. That's when I realized he never went to the room. He had just been sitting there the whole time. I watched him for 15 minutes before walking over to ask if he was okay. He turned his head slowly and said, "I just can't sleep." His voice was flat, cold. Then he turned back to the TV. My hands trembled as I went back to the desk. At 2 a.m., I noticed he was gone from the couch. My heart dropped. When I looked around, I saw him standing halfway down the dark hallway by the bathrooms, motionless. After a few minutes, he calmly returned to the couch. I called my manager, who told me to just keep an eye on him, but it already felt dangerous. When I checked the cameras, I saw him walking around the hotel, through hallways, stairwells, near the vending machines. Always alone, always watching. By 3:30, I called a non-emergency police line. While I waited, he moved closer, standing about 15 feet from the desk, staring directly at me. His eyes were empty, unblinking. Around 3:50, another guest arrived, and the man's head snapped toward them, watching every move. Minutes later, he disappeared again. On the cameras, I saw him standing outside a guest door on the first floor. That's when I called 911. When the police arrived around 4:10, they questioned him and escorted him out. Turns out, the card he'd used was stolen. He wasn't a guest at all. He had only pretended to check in so he could get inside the locked building. When they left, I sat there shaking until sunrise. The worst part wasn't that he was arrested. It was realizing he'd spent hours inside, wandering halls, standing in shadows, watching. He was never supposed to be there. And whatever his plan was, I know it wasn't good. My name is Meredith. I'm 24, and I work the night shift at a tiny gas station off County Road 11. It's the kind of lonely place people only stop at when they're lost or desperate for gas. I took the job because I liked the quiet. At least I used to. It began one Thursday night around 1 a.m. The air outside was still, and the fluorescent lights above me hummed like they were alive. I was about to microwave a cinnamon roll when the door chimed. A man walked in, mid-40s, messy hair, chapped lips, and a green coat. He didn't go for snacks or coffee. He just stood near the counter, staring at me with this weird familiarity. "Hi," I said. "You always work this late?" he asked. "Yeah, mostly," I replied. He smiled faintly. "I figured. I passed through before. It's always you." That unsettled me more than I let show. Then he said my name, Meredith. My blood ran cold. I wasn't wearing a name tag. He pointed to the whiteboard where I'd written cinnamon coffee is back. "You have nice handwriting," he said. "Most people, their eyes with circles. You use slashes. Very specific." I didn't respond. He didn't buy anything, just kept watching me before finally saying, "I'm Paul." Just curious, that's all. Then he left. After that, he started showing up randomly, sometimes every few nights. Sometimes he'd just sit in his car at the edge of the lot, headlights off. I tried to ignore him, but one night he came in again. "You're quieter tonight," he said. "Long shift," I muttered. "It must get lonely here," he continued. "Just you in the dark, no one for miles." Then, almost casually, he said, "You always keep the back room locked." "Smart. I've noticed you check it around 2 a.m. every night." My stomach dropped. He had been watching me. He smiled softly. "Didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." Then he walked out. After that night, I carried a tire iron under the counter and keys between my fingers when I walked to my car. But the fear never left. One night, I came back from a short break and found a Polaroid on the counter of me refilling the windshield washer bin outside. Taken that same night. Too close. On the bin label, the word windshield was circled in red ink around my /I. The next time he came in, I told him to leave. I threatened to call the police. He didn't get angry. He just said, "I thought maybe you'd appreciate someone who pays attention." I told him that wasn't attention. It was obsession. He tilted his head. "Would it be easier if I smiled and talked about sports? Pretended I didn't notice how your left eyelid twitches when you're tired." That's when I called 911. He didn't fight. When the cops arrived, they found a notepad in his car filled with my schedule, notes about my clothes, my walk, my groceries. One page just had my name written over and over again until it turned into scribbles. He said the same thing again and again. I just noticed things. The restraining order came through a week later. I quit the night shift and moved 2 hours away. But even now, when headlights follow me too long, I feel my neck prickle, and I still hear the way he said my name, like he'd practiced it. I used to work the night shift at a small, quiet hotel about a year ago. Even now, I can't stop thinking about what happened that night. It still makes my stomach twist. I don't know what that man's plan was, but remembering how long he was there without me realizing he wasn't supposed to be still chills me. The hotel was small, 3 floors, 40 rooms at most. Weeknights were slow, maybe 10 or 15 guests total. My shift was from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., usually peaceful and dull. I'd sit behind the desk, do paperwork, check the cameras, or scroll on my phone. The lobby wasn't big, just a desk, a few couches, and vending machines. Behind the desk, there was a little office with a glass window, so I could see everything. After midnight, the doors locked automatically, so guests had to buzz in. That night around 11 p.m., a man buzzed to come in. He looked mid-40s tall, a little thin, wearing jeans, a baseball cap, and carrying a backpack. He asked for a room, and I gave him room 214. I swiped his card, it beeped, and I handed him the key. He stared at me for a few seconds, expressionless, then turned and left. It wasn't threatening, just off. An hour later, I looked up and saw him again, sitting in the lobby, staring at the blank TV screen. He wasn't using his phone, wasn't reading, just sitting perfectly still. When I walked across the lobby, I felt his eyes follow me the whole time. That's when the unease really started. Around 1 a.m., I checked the system and saw something strange. Room 214 showed as vacant. I checked again. No name, no payment, no record of a check-in. Even the door log said no one had entered. That's when I realized he never went to the room. He had just been sitting there the whole time. I watched him for 15 minutes before walking over to ask if he was okay. He turned his head slowly and said, "I just can't sleep." His voice was flat, cold. Then he turned back to the TV. My hands trembled as I went back to the desk. It's been nearly 10 years, but I still remember that night vividly. I grew up in a small house, sharing a room with my older brother. 2 twin beds, 2 closets, 2 dressers, and barely enough space to breathe. When he went off to college, I finally claimed the whole room for myself. I added a desk, rearranged everything, and for the first time, the space truly felt like mine. Years later, when I came back home after graduating, my brother had already moved back in and taken our old room again, which forced me into the small guest room above the garage. It wasn't ideal, but it was private and quiet. One Friday night, while my parents were at our family's shore house and my brother was away for work, I was home alone, unwinding after a long day. Around 11:30 p.m., the house was silent, until the floor beneath me started to vibrate. The sound was unmistakable. The garage door was opening. My blood ran cold. Nobody was supposed to be home. My parents weren't due back until Sunday, and my brother was miles away. I grabbed a baseball bat from the closet and crept downstairs, trying to convince myself there had to be a normal explanation. But then I heard voices, low, deliberate whispers coming from my parents' bedroom. That's when I knew someone had broken in. I called 911, whispered my address, and kept the line open. But instead of hiding like the operator told me, I did the stupidest thing imaginable. I went after them. I charged into the bedroom, shouting at the top of my lungs. Two men were rummaging through my mom's drawers. One of them barely had time to react before I swung the bat and hit his leg. The other tackled me to the ground and started choking me. I was fighting for my life, seconds from passing out, when I saw the first man crawling toward me with a knife. Then, faintly, sirens. The last thing I remember was a swing of my own bat hitting my head. When I woke up, police officers were surrounding me. The men were gone, having escaped through the back door when they heard the sirens. I survived with just a concussion, but I couldn't shake one thought. The intruders knew exactly how to get into the house. The only way to open the garage was through the button in my car, parked outside. Whoever they were, they knew my family, our habits, and our routines. That realization still haunts me more than the attack itself.
My name is Annabelle. I'm from the UK, and this happened when I was 16 and in high school. Our school required us to wear lanyards with ID cards that opened locked doors. The cards had our photos and names on them, but many students flipped them backwards so no one could see the face. It was my second full day back after being sick for most of the week. During geography class, about 20 minutes after lunch, I desperately needed to use the restroom. My teacher reluctantly let me go since we weren't supposed to leave during lessons. The hallways were empty, no students, no teachers. After using the bathroom, I began walking back through the cafeteria when I noticed a man sitting at one of the tables. He looked too old to be a student but wore a lanyard, so I assumed he was a teacher. As I walked past, he said, "Hey." The sudden voice made me jump. He laughed softly and apologized, saying he didn't mean to scare me. Then he asked, "Can you help me get some work things from my car?" I agreed without hesitation. After all, I thought he was staff. We walked through the foyer and out of the building in silence. He seemed nervous, fidgeting with his hands, putting them in and out of his pockets. The car park was about 50 meters away, hidden behind some bushes. As we approached, he said, "My car's the blue one down at the end. I've got some bags in the boot. Could you help me carry them?" As we got closer, I saw movement inside the car. My stomach tightened. There were two men hiding in the back seat. I froze, realizing too late what was happening. One of the car doors swung open and the man beside me grabbed my arm. Panic surged through me and I yanked myself free with all my strength before sprinting toward the school. I heard footsteps behind me, heavy and fast, but they stopped as soon as I reached the glass entrance doors. I burst inside, ran straight to the cafe attached to the library, and shouted for help. The woman at the counter calmed me and took me to a teacher's office, where the police and my parents were called. Security footage showed everything. The men were arrested and charged with attempted kidnapping. It turned out the fake teacher had entered the school using a student's lost ID card, which was why his lanyard was flipped backward to hide the wrong photo. I didn't go back to school for weeks after that. Even now, I'm still in therapy, but writing about it helps me process what happened. It remains the most terrifying day of my life. This happened when I was studying at the University of Huddersfield between 2021 and 2023. The campus was quiet at night, especially the business building, an old 3-story structure with dim lights and the faint smell of cleaning chemicals. It was perfect for focusing, or so I thought. One night, I had to work on a massive statistics project. My laptop was malfunctioning, so I decided to use the computers in the business building's lab. I got there around 10 at night. The halls were empty, the air freezing. I swiped my student ID, entered the computer lab, and began working. The silence was thick, broken only by the tapping of keys and the hum of the machines. Around 11:30, I heard a door slam somewhere deeper inside the building. It wasn't the front entrance, it was from within. I paused, waiting to hear footsteps, but none came. I tried to brush it off as a draft. Then I heard slow, deliberate footsteps in the hallway approaching the lab. My heart pounded as they stopped right outside the door. The handle began rattling, not softly, violently, like someone trying to get in. The doors were supposed to lock automatically after 10 o'clock, so whoever it was shouldn't have been able to enter. After 30 seconds of constant rattling, it stopped. The footsteps retreated down the hallway until silence returned. I should have left, but the project deadline kept me glued to my chair. About 10 minutes later, another sound came, this time above me. Something was moving in the ceiling. The thin tiles shifted slightly, like weight was pressing on them. Then came a faint creak, like someone lowering themselves carefully to avoid making noise. Panic hit me. I unplugged my flash drive, grabbed my bag, and ran. The hallway outside was dim, lit by buzzing fluorescent lights. My sneakers squeaked as I hurried toward the stairwell. When I looked up, my blood ran cold. On the landing above, a man stood staring down at me. He wasn't a student or professor. His clothes were dirty and torn, his mouth stretched into a wide grin. He didn't move. I bolted. A few weeks ago, something strange happened to me, and I have a feeling it isn't over yet. I live on the edge of a quiet, nature-filled suburb. Lots of trees, birds, and wildlife. One side of my house borders a small wooded patch, not big enough to be called a forest, but large enough to give you that eerie feeling when the wind rustles through the leaves. Just beyond that patch of woods is a road, and across that road lies a huge body of water, surrounded by tall fences plastered with no trespassing and government property signs. Growing up, I always thought it was a reservoir, but strangely, it has no name on Google Maps or Apple Maps. That alone always made me curious, though I never found any information about it no matter how many times I searched. I'm on my school's varsity cross-country team, so I often run through that wooded area. It's a perfect 2-mile loop that passes by the road near the water and circles back to my house. Peaceful and safer than my twisty, sidewalkless neighbourhood. One evening, after a long run, I heard something moving behind me in the woods. I brushed it off as an animal and went home. That night, a massive thunderstorm rolled in, and as always, I left my bedroom window open to enjoy the sound of rain. But as I was drifting off to sleep, I heard something else, soft, human-like sobbing beneath my window. Over the rain, a faint female voice called out, "Can you help me?" I'm cold. I jumped out of bed, heart racing, and ran outside without thinking. The rain soaked me instantly, but I didn't care. Someone needed help. When I turned the corner to my bedroom window, I saw her, a woman crouched beneath a small overhang, dressed in a white gown or dress, trembling. I asked if she was okay, but before I could take another step, she suddenly sprang up and charged toward me. For a split second, I froze. But then, halfway to me, she stopped, turned, and bolted toward the woods barefoot, running faster than I thought humanly possible. I stood there, shocked and dripping, before running inside to wake my dad. We locked every door and window and debated calling the police, but the storm was too intense, and we figured she'd be long gone. We decided to deal with it in the morning. Days passed quietly, and we convinced ourselves it had been a homeless woman or someone having a breakdown. But then, a week later, during one of my usual runs, I saw movement by the fenced reservoir. When I looked closer, I froze. The same woman was sitting at the water's edge, her feet in the water. Somehow she was inside the fenced area, even though there's no opening anywhere. She turned her head, locking eyes with me, and smiled. A wide, unnatural grin that made my blood run cold. She ran straight to the fence, pressing her face against the chain link, still smiling. I yelled that I was calling the police, and the moment I said that, she dove into the water without hesitation and vanished beneath the surface. I called 911 immediately, but by the time officers arrived, she was gone. They searched the area but found nothing and told me to go about my day as usual. Since then, I haven't seen her again, but almost every night I hear faint movements outside my window. Not crying this time, just soft, deliberate sounds, like someone pacing. I haven't been able to sleep well or go running since. I keep wondering how she got behind that fence, and a part of me can't shake the feeling that she's still watching me, waiting.
I used to work the night shift at a small, quiet hotel about a year ago. Even now, I can't stop thinking about what happened that night. It still makes my stomach twist. I don't know what that man's plan was, but remembering how long he was there without me realizing he wasn't supposed to be still chills me. The hotel was small, 3 floors, 40 rooms at most. Weeknights were slow, maybe 10 or 15 guests total. My shift was from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., usually peaceful and dull. I'd sit behind the desk, do paperwork, check the cameras, or scroll on my phone. The lobby wasn't big, just a desk, a few couches, and vending machines.
It happened 2 years ago, on Halloween night of 2023. I was 22 then, exhausted after a long community event filled with games, costume contests, and candy trivia. All I wanted was rest when my younger sister Savannah called, asking if I could take her and my nephew Jackson trick-or-treating. Even though I was drained, I agreed. Big brothers don't say no on Halloween. Savannah, 15, was dressed perfectly as Raven from Teen Titans, pale makeup and all, while 11-year-old Jackson proudly wore his Sub-Zero costume. We drove to a busy neighborhood, filled our bags with candy, and even met a kind old man grilling hot dogs instead of giving sweets. It was the kind of night that made you forget the world for a while, until it wasn't. As we were walking back to the car, the crowd had thinned and the streets had gone quiet. That's when I noticed someone standing in a dark yard across the street, cloaked in black, hooded, face hidden. I told Savannah and Jackson to stay close. Jackson laughed it off, but Savannah saw my serious look. She knew I carried a gun for protection. When we turned away, I heard footsteps, heavy, deliberate. I turned, and the figure was following us, dressed in tactical gear, mask covering every inch of their face. My heart raced. I whispered, "Don't stop walking. Don't look back." We reached the car, but the figure kept coming. I pulled out my Glock and aimed. "Why are you following us?" I demanded. The person froze, raised their hands, and slowly pulled off their mask. It was a woman, mid-30s, eyes empty. "I'm an undercover cop," she said coldly. "Lower your weapon." Her tone was robotic, emotionless. Her story didn't make sense. Her outfit, her behavior, her lies. Then she smiled, a slow, eerie grin. "If you didn't have that gun," she whispered, "this night would have ended very differently." From the shadows, 4 other figures appeared, all in tactical black, blank-faced, soulless. I ordered Savannah and Jackson into the car and drove off. She just stood there smiling as we left. Days later, I got a photo from an unknown number, my car in my apartment parking lot. The police couldn't help without a direct threat. When I returned to that same house days later, the homeowner said nothing strange had happened that night. That's when I knew she had lied. She was never a cop. Whoever they were, they knew where I lived, what I drove, and maybe how long they'd been watching. That Halloween changed me forever. I still don't know what they wanted, but I know one thing. Being armed that night probably saved our lives.
If you've ever dreamt of, just getting away from it all,
Yeah.
escaping the noise,
Hmm.
that perfect, quiet, isolated cottage probably pops into your head.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're an artist looking for inspiration, or maybe just trying to recover from something difficult.
Right. Fresh start.
Exactly. You move in, you settle down, you're waiting for that deep, comforting silence.
Mm.
But what happens when that silence, isn't silent?
Yeah.
And it's actually kind of malicious and personal.
It's that ultimate twist, isn't it? You go looking for solitude, and instead you find the place is already occupied by someone or something that really wants to talk to you.
Yeah.
So today we're going to dig into two really distinct, pretty chilling stories about cottage hauntings, both focusing on these weird auditory things.
Okay.
We've got Amelia's story from the Whispering Cottage of Ashmere, and then Sophie's experience in the Whispering Room beneath the floorboards.
Right, two different takes. And our goal here isn't just to retell spooky stories. We want to get into the mechanics of it. These sources give us almost two different models of how a haunting can work, specifically with these whispers. So what we want to do is compare how the whispering starts, what kind of secret, physical, or maybe psychological gets uncovered.
Yeah, the barrier that gets crossed.
Exactly. And what that difference means for the people involved, the consequences, which are deeply unsettling in both cases.
Okay, so let's start where they both begin. Common ground. Both women were seeking refuge, right?
Right.
Amelia, she's a writer. She needed quiet, needed that isolation in Ashmere to get creative.
Makes sense.
And Sophie, she was getting over a really rough breakup, wanted a totally fresh start outside Manchester. So both arrived hoping for, a blank slate.
But the house, or whatever was in the house, had other ideas.
Precisely. And the way these things start, it's subtle. That's what's so effective.
Yeah, talk about Amelia's start in Ashmere. It wasn't immediately terrifying, was it?
No, not at all. On her first night, she heard this sound, but she kind of rationalized it away, thought it was just, the wind or the house settling.
Standard old house stuff.
Yeah. Described it as a faint whisper from behind the bedroom door. Very easy to dismiss.
Until it isn't.
Exactly. That dismissal, it's like our brain's first line of defense, trying to keep things normal. But that breaks down fast when the sound gets personal. For Amelia, it quickly went from just noise to actually calling her name, Amelia.
Oh, wow.
And the source is specific here. The voice was soft, stretched, almost pleading.
Pleading, not threatening.
Not yet. It's almost more insidious, right? It's alluring. Using emotion, maybe playing on empathy, not just raw fear, trying to draw her closer.
Okay, that's creepy in a different way. Now, Sophie started
Last night,
near
Emma
Manchester.
found an
Yeah.
old voice memo on
She
her
also
late
heard faint
grandfather's
sounds.
phone.
She did. Also
was
dismissed
recorded
them initially.
decades
Thought it
ago.
was just old
Curious,
pipes,
she hit play.
muffles talking through the walls, that kind of thing.
Again, very rational.
The mirror
But her
knows your
story
secret.
gives us this immediate clue. This,
It knows you're already gone.
this physical impossibility that tells you something is very wrong.
What was that?
She specifically noted hearing floorboards creaking, softly but distinctly,
Okay, old house, creaky floors.
creaking above her.
Ah,
And the house didn't have an upstairs.
right. Okay, yeah, that's not pipes. That's physics breaking down.
Exactly. Spatial impossibility. It signals right away that the source isn't just physical structure. It's something else, something maybe within the structure, but not of it.
That's deeply unsettling. Not just a ghost sound, but the house itself is wrong.
So, okay, the stories then shift. Curiosity, maybe fear, pushes them to investigate where these sounds are coming from.
Yes, but how they confront it is really different.
Yeah.
Amelia's is about following a moving sound, like being led somewhere.
Allure.
Right. While Sophie's is about finding and breaking into a sealed space, a boundary.
Okay, let's stick with Amelia first. She follows the voice.
Yeah, she works up the nerve and follows this whisper as it seems to move down the hallway towards the attic stairs.
Okay.
And as she gets to the attic, the source says the whisper kind of peaked, turned into this short, sharp cry, and then just silence.
And she finds
Just a mirror, an old dust-covered mirror leaning against a wall, seems almost anticlimactic.
But it probably wasn't.
Definitely not, because when she wiped the dust away, foggy letters appeared on the glass.
Saying what?
I never left.
Chills. Okay, so the entity is tied to the mirror, to reflections.
That seems to be the implication. The mirror, it's such a classic symbol in these stories, isn't it? Duality, trapped souls.
Yeah.
And the story doubles down on that. Amelia looks into the mirror, and for just a split second, she sees it. A pale woman standing inside the mirror, whispering her name again.
Whoa. So it didn't need to, physically appear in the room. just the reflection.
It seems so. It's less about a physical threat at this stage and maybe more about psychological recognition, like seeing it, acknowledging it in the mirror seals something.
Okay. But wait a second. If the entity was just in the mirror, sort of trapped, how did the voice move? From the bedroom, down the hall, up to the attic. That sounds pretty active.
That's a really sharp point. The moving voice suggests it wasn't entirely passive or just reflective. It implies the entity was mobile within the house, actively luring her.
Hunting, almost.
Maybe. Hunting for a replacement, perhaps.
Yeah.
Using the sound to guide the victim to the capture point, the mirror in the attic. So the haunting mechanism seems to be about subtle replacement.
Okay, subtle replacement. Now, let's contrast that with Sophie. Her confrontation involved finding something hidden, right? A physical barrier.
Exactly. She found this trap door under the living room carpet. But significantly, this was after she called the landlord.
And the landlord knew something.
Oh, yeah. He confirmed the place had history, quote unquote, and specifically warned her not to open the room under the floor.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take source material you provide, really get into it, pull it apart, and help you quickly grasp the core insights. Today's mission, well, it's fascinatingly focused. We've got this incredibly compact narrative, a chilling little piece titled The Silent Mirror Swap. It's not some sprawling document. It's short, sharp, almost perfect, you could say, as a piece of horror fiction. So our job here isn't just to tell you what happens. We want to analyze the specific ways the author makes this encounter between a person and their reflection hit so hard in so few words.
Exactly, yeah. When a text is this tight, every single word, every detail, it really matters. We're looking at a sequence of events here that takes us from, finding an object through this rising dread to a complete transformation, all in less than 24 hours. The storytelling is just incredibly efficient. So we need to figure out, okay, what structural choices make this exchange feel so complete and, frankly, terrifying?
Okay, right. Let's unpack the beginning then, the initial setup. For horror to really land, you often need that mix of the everyday and the weird. So we start with Emily.
Yeah.
She's in an old London flat. And the object, it's a vintage mirror she specifically found at a market. These details, they're not just flavor text, are they? They feel foundational.
Oh, absolutely foundational. They basically lay the groundwork for immediate atmosphere. Dread, almost. Think about, narrative economy. The author doesn't have pages and pages to build tension slowly, so you invoke an old London flat and boom, instantly you get images of history, maybe decay, secrets hidden away. It's a shortcut straight into that gothic vibe.
And the mirror itself, vintage.
Yeah.
Found at a market. So not a clean, new thing off a shelf. That signals a past, doesn't it? A history Emily's now bringing right into her home.
Precisely. It allows for this idea of transferred malice, maybe? Unknown history. If she'd bought a brand new mirror, well, the supernatural stuff that follows would need a lot more justifying, wouldn't it? But a market find. It implies previous owners, maybe bad things happen, maybe there's some kind of dormant energy there. It's like a perfect Chekhov's gun,
Right.
It primes you, the listener, to just accept, okay, this object is special, it holds a secret, it's going to do something bad.
So the setting gives us that plausible way in for the supernatural. Okay, but is there a risk, maybe, in leaning so hard on these classic tropes? The old place, the haunted object. Does it feel a bit, unoriginal sometimes?
That's a fair point, yeah. In a longer story, maybe it would risk feeling derivative, you're right. But in something this short, these tropes become tools, really efficient tools, like shorthand. The author kind of uses the expectations we already have from these tropes to build momentum super fast, and then, wham! Immediately violates the deeper rules of reality. And that's where the real terror kicks in. The setting is like the Trojan horse, isn't it? It gets the horror inside the gates.
Okay, that makes sense. The Trojan horse. I like that. So that brings us to the violation itself. The story moves fast. Emily hangs the mirror, and that very night, the weirdness starts, the first crack. She sees her reflection smiling. But the text is clear. She wasn't smiling.
Right. And this is that critical moment. You could call it ontological shock. I mean, think about what a reflection is. Fundamentally, it's supposed to just copy you, right? An optical slave. Its existence depends entirely on you, the subject. That smile. That's the first instant the reflection shows independence. It shatters the basic physics of how mirrors are supposed to work. It immediately promotes the mirror from just being an object to, an entity. Something with its own agency.
Yeah, and it starts kind of passive-aggressively.
Yeah.
Like just a facial expression that's wrong. But the story escalates immediately. That's what's so effective. It details the shift from just a smile to a conscious physical action. The reflection slowly raised its hand and waved.
Mm-hmm. And that word slowly is crucial. It connects right into the psychology of dread. Horror writers know there are basically two main ways to scare people, right? There's the sudden shock, the jump scare, and then there's that slow buildup of unavoidable dread. By making the wave slow, deliberate, the author denies Emily and